Carnival is in the air. We've been speaking to many of the artists and people making Carnival in Trinidad and Tobago. But also in the air is the issue of intellectual property rights. And we take the opportunity to plug for every Monday we speak about the business of Carnival. Rishi Harinanan, he speaks to Carla Paris about the business of Carnival and the Trinidad and Tobago copyright. But the Trinidad and Tobago Copyright Collection Organization, they held a press conference, I believe it was yesterday on O'Connor Street, to address some issues. Richard Cornwall is the CEO and VP of TTCCO, and we hope to get him on the line, but we're very lucky to have in studio Akila Phillips. She is an entertainment law and IP specialist and helping to bring a little more holistic view to the matter. So we say good morning to you and thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the issues of copyright and intellectual property that raise themselves to the fore during this period?
Well, what really is predominantly a hot button and is being debated is what rights are you paying for and who should you pay the rights to? And unfortunately, in the climate lends itself to so much confusion because there's not enough intellectual property awareness and education. Our Copyright Act provides that there are there's rights in copyright as well as neighboring rights. And these rights in copyright arise for literary and artistic work. So this refers to musical composers and authors, where neighboring rights refers to persons who are producers, performers, and broadcasting organizations. What has happened in the past is that persons tend to only recognize composers, persons who write the song. And now there's a greater awareness that other contributors to the creative process should be compensated.
How do people, and I'm thinking about FET promoters in specifically, because right now there's an issue where promoters are wondering, who do we pay? And we even had a story a little earlier with Mr. Cornwall saying that ignorance is not an excuse. How do we find out which collecting agency we're supposed to be paying monies to?
Well, first, I mean, when you take it back to creating a song has many elements to it. As I said, it has a musical composer, it has a lyricist, there's an author, and then there's the persons who actually bring the song to life. You have the artists, you have the vocal, the background singers, you have the musicians, and these people assist in the creative process. So whereas you'd have one collective management agency representing composers, there's also another collective management agency who's representing the neighboring rights of producers, performers, and those sorts of creatives. So you have to go to the various collective management agencies to make sure that you obtain licenses for those individuals that they represent.
So is it a matter of going to the agencies before and finding out, do you represent this person?
Well, yeah, you could go to the collective management agency and Mr. Cornwall could speak to that as in terms of his organizations and the membership and who they represent. You could go to the collective management agencies and find out who do you represent, who's your repertoire, and be able to have a greater appreciation and understanding as to their membership.
Is it possible for more than one agency to represent an individual?
Yes, it is, in one sense, because, for instance, as I said, there are persons who are composers, but sometimes composers could also be performers. So you would have a collective management agency who is assigned rights for composers, but because that individual is also an artist in the sense that they sing what they write, they would be assigned to that agency, but in the capacity as a composer. So they haven't assigned their rights in the capacity as a performer.
But so we have the possibility of different organizations representing one individual for different things.
Different rights, yes.
Can somebody almost straddle two and say, okay, well, they represent two agencies are representing the individual for the same thing?
Not for the same thing, for different rights, per se, different rights. And that is where a bit of, for the public, a bit of confusion may come in trying to understand which collective management agency I should go to, who I should be speaking to. So educating yourself as to which rights the collective agency, management agency speaks to would allow you to know, well, okay, I am abiding by the law and making sure I have the license for the event that I'm
And we actually have Mr. Cornwall on the line, Richard Cornwall, CEO and VP of the Trinidad and Tobago Copyright Collection Organization. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning to you, Brethren. Good morning. I apologize, humblest apologies. Stuck in traffic since about 20 to 6 from Arima. It's really ridiculous. Good morning to you, Akila.
Hi, morning.
I consider myself the lucky one because I'm in studio with Akila.
Well, you're in good company, an educated company, may I say so.
Definitely, and we want to ask you to educate us on some of the topics that were discussed yesterday at that press conference.
Great. Well, the TTCO held a press conference. Mr. Phillips was actually a part of it as an independent contributor. What we sought to do was to educate the public with respect to connecting the dots. First, we had to extrapolate out. We had to separate for a person's appreciation that we're talking about intellectual property rights. That's the heading. It's like insurance. I tell individuals you have life insurance, annuities, term insurance. One individual could hold many different insurance portfolios to self. So what we wanted to do is actually bring to the fore that there is copyright, there is neighboring rights, and there's works of mass. We allowed the independents to speak on it, to connect the dots, and then what we further did was indicate to persons the challenges that we had in the landscape legally and what our actions, intended actions, were going to be based on errant promoters, those who have decided that they will not answer our calls and or take notice of the fact that additional licenses do apply.
In terms of connecting those dots, we had Stuart Young asking the general populace not to buy pirated music. What does intellectual property rights mean to collectives or creatives?
Well, once you're creative, what you have once you decide to create something is it's tied to economics. This is how a creative lives. So once you put out material, whether you're an author, composer, or a performer or a producer, once you put out music or anything that you have created, this is actually your livelihood. You're talking about probably even a legacy for your family, for your children moving forward. When we have individuals that then take that property and duplicate that property without permission, it severely damages the economic position of the creative. So it's extremely important that we try to heed the call of the Honorable Stuart Young, because it will also add to the economic overall position of Trinidad and Tobago.
Now, Richard and Akila, I want to put this out to both of you. Having promoters comply is one thing.
Yes.
But when you have promoters, you have a party, you're setting up, you have different service providers, and some of those are the DJs who play the music. How do you regulate, monitor? What is the responsibility of the DJ with regard to honoring copyright and intellectual property? I see you smiling, Akila.
Yes, because again, these are some of the hot button issues that have raised their ugly head, for want of a better word, during this time. And my position is once the promoter or the person who is in charge of hosting the event has obtained the relevant licenses, then the responsibility or the burden is not placed on the DJ during the event to worry about, okay, this song might infringe on that song. So once the coverage is obtained, then the promoter and the patrons can enjoy the event without fear.
Do you share similar sentiments, Richard?
We share a slightly different sentiment. Copyright is not an exact science. We did not create it. What has been the general practice before even the TTCO came into being and put out by the Ministry of Legal Affairs via a circulation from them is that all parties need to secure a copyright license, neighboring rights license, or the relevant licenses. DJs are asked to have their license as well as the promoters. We could probably do another show where we can extrapolate the information, because it's a hot topic, as Akila said. We're looking at it in terms of being able to make some sort of accommodations. But I say, based on how it is now, we comply and complain, we lobby for change, but we share slightly different views. But I'm not saying that Akila's position could be wrong. It's being looked at right now, but that's how it's practiced in Trinidad.
Worst come to worst, Richard, what are some of the points that will make you say, okay, well, we're going to shut down this fair?
Okay, so basically once a copyright license is issued, you have two opposite ends of the spectrum. You have those who are charged with the responsibility to understand the IP, to make good judgments. Many times it doesn't happen. So what happens is that a promoter can go before a magistrate, and the magistrates, being familiar with one agency for the last 30 years, just ask for a copyright license, and then they refer to court. not understanding that there are different rights and you must now ask for the relevant copyright or neighboring rights or works of mass licenses as per the CMOs that administer. The promoter then believes that once he gets clearance from the court to have his event on one license vis-a-vis either us or COT, he's in the clear. That is a wrong position. So when it comes to the promoter, if no license is present once we come on location, then you're in clear violation. Your event could be disrupted by that of the music being turned off. It's a deeper rabbit hole that I would like to get into with you all, but the correct thing is all licenses, relevant licenses. I really like to make a call to the magistrates to begin asking for the relevant licenses, and I can make available to you guys there in the media a document from the court that lists out all of the CMOs and the onus being on the promoter to check with the CMOs to ensure that you have the relevant licenses, but it's misinterpreted.
So the buck stops with the promoter. Ignorance is not an excuse. Richard Cornwall, thank you very much. Akila Philippi, thank you for your presence in studio.